Hello, everyone. Welcome to the late game episode 42. My name is Lycan. With me, I have my co-host Jeff and Control Robinson. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah. How was travel back from WCS?
Travel was okay. You know, I don't like the travel part anymore. It's definitely hit that point in time where I sound like that upper middle class white snob who's like, ugh, flying on airplanes around the world really sucks. You know, so I understand what it sounds like, but flying on airplanes around the world sucks.
Yeah, yeah. Did you start off at a point where you got on a plane, you're like, okay, there's a baby yelling. That's fine. I'll eventually sleep through it. And then you found yourself as you traveled more and more, those babies started to actually annoy you, and you couldn't just get past it.
Um, I don't know what my start was. I think it depends on the baby's cry and the proximity I am to it. There was a baby crying for a good 5 of the 10 hours for this flight,
Jesus.
but it was 10 rows up, and you know, I like to watch 3 or 4 movies on a flight, and I have my music, and even then, the baby's crying wasn't so obnoxious. So like when I read, I could still focus on the book and stuff like that. So as things are considered, it's okay. I've definitely heard the horror stories of people that are like, yeah, it was the seat 2 over, and it's a baby just screaming in their direction. I would go mad. I would just go insane.
Yeah. I was on a bus, the bus to Toronto, and there was a kid, and I think that was the first time after all this traveling that I was like, okay, kid's starting to get annoying. Can't really
Yeah.
take it. All
Did
right,
you put this on Team Liquid and everything, buddy?
no, you asked me that before we started.
Yeah, and it's still not on Team Liquid. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm making the post right now. Yeah.
And then you never tweet it out either. You don't do the little things like him.
Today my groove is just off.
So I
Not
think this is Twitch channel. It says you're playing Smite. Nope, because it's Lord Lycan Smite I Knew Your. What's your channel?
LycanGTV.
GTV.
Mm-hmm.
What's the G?
Honestly, it means nothing. Because my name was Lycan Grope, and I thought Lycan TV sounded kind of lame. So, I dropped the Grope because of professionalism, and I just like the G. I don't know. It kind of fit.
I'm going to tweet it out for you, okay?
Thanks, buddy.
I'm no Destiny, but we'll try to get these views here.
Oh. Big Papa in control. I actually missed having you the other week. We were having some discussion, and we got to some topic, and I was like, I really need... I remember what it is, and we'll bring it up. I was like, I need Jeff here to kind of rein me in and tell me if I'm out of line here.
I am either, the chaotic aspect of a social circle or the dickish leveling one. I try to be some things. Hello, Wolf Schroeder.
Oh, snap.
But yeah, let's talk some StarCraft 2, man.
Let's talk StarCraft 2. All right, let's talk about the finals. Let's talk about the most exciting thing that has happened in a long time in StarCraft, right? Yeah. Lilbo won the finals. Incredible. And it wasn't just Lilbo won the finals and stomped everyone. He really exciting game. So let's start with that. Let's talk Hydra Lilbo, right? That series was absolutely incredible. That comeback. Walk me through your thought process during that comeback. Like, how were you interpreting what was going on?
Well, specifically Game 3, the actual comeback game itself, Hydra did a mega, it's hard to even call it a 3-base all-in because he didn't saturate the third. The natural had 9 drones on it, so it was a pretty big all-in. And killing the Nexus, forcing out as many buildings as he did, killing as many sentries as he did, it's not like it's some clear, he dove on the Nexus, lost his entire army, but killed no army, and then obviously died. It looked a lot like, Lilbo's dead. You lose that much, and he pushes out with 5 sentries, 4 zealots, a stalker or 2, something like that, an okay force. But honestly, the moment in time where I was like, okay, he's dead, into oh god, he's actually just flat out gonna win, was Hydra was just bleeding units right and left. He kept running up and down his natural and third ramp, just up and down, purposelessly. He was just scouting, but with his whole army on either side. And then he was Lilbo would transfer over to the third, start harassing there, and then 1 or 2 roaches would just constantly walk down the ramp over here. It was just really sloppy. And what I kind of like about it is, from StarCraft perspective, we could all look at that and just be like, man, Hydra's playing like absolute shit. What an idiot. And yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, he kind of was. But think about it this way. He just 2-0'd Lilbo in heroic fashion. He just did an all-in where everyone in the entire place, including Hydra and probably Lilbo, were like, okay, he's dead, 3-0, easy peasy. This is a Korean stomping a foreigner. This is how it should be. But then things start taking a twist, and when that happens, your fingers can kind of freeze up, your thought process goes to crap, and you start to look really bad. And that game was like one of the biggest games of the entire tournament, because the next 2 games, Lilbo won in just as frustrating of a fashion, where he's like, just good forest fields, but Hydra's just bleeding units right and left. I mean, the game on Cactus Valley, where he's like doing burrowed roaches, and he unburrows half of them, and the other half are running up against a forest field by themselves. Like, that's not, like, if you sit Hydra down and go, like, what were you thinking here? He's not going to be like, well, I hoped the roaches against the forest field would distract him, while the completely inferior forest would magically do 10 times more damage. Like, you know, he was just fucking up.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, the rest of the games, I mean, Lobo, I think it was awesome play, but would you say it was also Hydra failing?
I would say, and it's amazing to say this because I've casted at so many events and been a part of so many events where it is exactly the opposite. I would say Lilbo handled the pressure better than anyone he played against. Like in all the series, there was just definitely moments of time where it came down to who was going to execute better, and it was always Lilbo. He was the, and I've said this for a while, but these youngsters, man, they just don't give a shit. They don't care.
Yeah.
I think stream went down or something.
No, it's good. I was just turning Skype on away.
Okay, but yeah, I'm blown away by the results we're seeing from some of these young guys. Like, Lilbo steals the show, but Mana performed really well. Patreus comes in there like a stone cold killer and makes it to the round of 8. You know, Zanster, this young 17-year-old out of Sweden, who it's okay to do okay, you know, in the European scene, but to go on that stage and be entertaining and do really well, it's something else entirely. It's awesome.
Yeah, let's talk about Mana real quick. Before we get to the finals, what'd you think of his performance against 4GG?
Specifically against 4GG, it was pretty excellent. It was a crazy series. You have that draw, and then the draw attempt, right? Or no, was that the same series? Yeah, it was. There was the actual draw, and then there was the draw attempt. I believe that was the same series. Anyways, crazy stuff. But just, we were actually kind of laughing about this on the way to the event. But it's like, you know, what a world we live in, where if we're being honest with ourselves, Mana is playing against 4GG for like $20,000 or whatever it was, 15, something incredible. Whereas in Korea, to play for that amount of money, you're like, it's, you know, classic versus hero. It's fucking partying against life, like leagues apart. But, you know, a lot of people choose to look at that kind of negatively. But for me, it's just, that's what we wanted from WCS, to be honest. We wanted to see regionalistic talent go up against each other, not just always top-tier Korean versus top-tier Korean. Because guess what? The last 3 or 4, I know I'm getting way off subject, by the way. I guess I'm in a rambling mood. I apologize. But the last few years, it's been top Korean versus top Korean, and it's not good for viewership. It's better to have foreigners to have something to play for.
Yeah, and that's actually somewhere I do want to go right after we talk real quick about the finals. For PvP finals, mirror matchups, PvP, and ZVZ aren't really my favorite to watch, but I felt like we had actually a pretty exciting finals.
Yeah. This game is in an amazing place right now. Like, we've all, well, a lot of us have been through the era where TVT was Mass Marines versus Mass Marines. Zerg versus Zerg was just pure Roach versus pure Roach. It still kind of is, but even that has a little bit more diversity, and the Zerg players are just better, so it's a little bit more fun to watch. And then PvP was the most god-awful of them all. It was 4-gate versus 4-gate. It was just the stupidest shit. Like, just terrible maps, too much pushing, and mirror matchups are really bad. But right now, I actually really like where it's at. PvP has, of all the mirror matchups, probably the most build order diversity. There's certain tried and true ones that tend to make appearances more than once in a best of 5, best of 7, but for the most part, you got some really good diversity and different gameplay. Even TVT is really fun. It's a little bit early game heavy. Like we saw 4GG versus Pol, it was it was like, you went CC and I just went one base all in. You know, well, your tank didn't hold off enough. Good game. And so it can get stuck there a little bit, but even that is in a better place than it's been in the past. So, yeah, PvP is not the one you would send out to the masses and be like, come see the most exciting StarCraft of your life, but it was a great series.
Yeah. What did you think of how heavily Mana relied on oh man, Twilight Council? I think he used it almost every game, except for one. Do you think that is that just Mana's style, or do you think he was trying to counter how Lilbo likes to play?
Not. I would say it was probably a mixture of what he's comfortable with and what he thinks is good against Lobo. Lobo is a stalker sentry guy. Like that's just what he's going to do. And in PvP, it turns out he's just a stalker guy. You don't really need sentries as much. He, of course, had a few Stargates in there, but it mostly boiled down to like, I'm waiting for you to go Colossus transition, and then my 30 stalkers just run you over, which is like the most aggravatingly boring style on planet Earth. But the game is made for good games. Mana relying on Twilight Council is not too shocking because I would say most Protoss rely on Twilight Council in a top tier PvP. You'll see your Stargates mixed in there, but you're very happy to be going Blink Stalker against Stargate in most cases, anyways. So the nice thing about Twilight Council is like you're not really running up against something that you're worried about. Like the only coin flippy scary part of that is I went Blink Stalker, he's going DT. Did I add a Robo? Was it too late? Was it too early? If I did add it too early, did he just go pure Blink Stalkers and now I'm at a deficit of, several hundred minerals and several hundred gas? That's where it gets a little bit weird, but otherwise that is the safest best style.
Okay, slightly off topic, but one thing I had thought about during the finals, if someone goes for Phoenix opening in a PvP, right, and you either go Stargate and go Oracle, or you go for a Twilight Council and Blink, what is your best bet against that kind of playstyle? Because I feel that the person with Phoenix, who's able to, lift an Immortal or lift up some Stalkers, is able to get an advantage, especially to keep you contained in your base.
Oh yeah, in most cases you would be happy to be the guy that's going Stargate against Robo. Specifically because what you talked about. It's not necessarily even picking up Immortals, it's more just that when is it a good time for the guy with the Robo to push out? The answer is almost never, so what they end up doing is staying at home, and then the player with the Phoenixes has that initiative and knows that. So as long as he's picking up 1 or 2 probes every few moments and is constantly on top of their transitions and their tech, he's threatening the Mothership Core, he's initiating Photon Overcharge, that kind of stuff, then they might be small little things, but they all definitely let you know you're ahead. And then it's the nice thing about Phoenix is they never hit that obsolete stage where it's like, okay, the Phoenix are completely dead weight. Right. Like in the mega late game, sure, but in the mid game fights where most of PvP is played, picking up 5 or 6 Stalkers and removing them from a fight, or like you said, 3 or 4 Immortals, that's devastatingly powerful, and it's really cool. And it forces things like cannons at home, and like I said, the Motion Core is low energy, so if you can get the probe that's out on the map dropping the pylon, these are all very powerful things, and people love going Phoenix.
All right, let's talk about overall tournament, your favorite moment, hands down.
Ooh, I mean, I think the predictable answer is Mana making it to the finals, the audience rushing the stage, lifting him up, and his girlfriend embracing him on stage. That's just that's a cool, like, emotional moment that we don't see enough in StarCraft. Like, too often, the almost autistic, like, Asperger's guy wins the match and then just starts, like, plugging in or unplugging his stuff and kind of stares blankly at them. Like, how do you feel? And they're like, pretty good. Like, all right, $30,000. What are you gonna do with it? He's like, give it to my parents. Like, this is the most boring shit ever. Like that's what happens most of the time.
Right.
So to see real human emotions, the audience, like Poland, it cannot be said enough. Just has an amazing audience in every aspect. They weren't like overly aggressive. There was nothing weird. They just were proud of their guy and they lifted him up, and Mana's perfect for it. So that's the boring answer. I think the other favorite moment would be. Well, behind the scenes, we're having a really good time. Those are a great group of guys. A lot of dicking around went on. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you saw the pictures I was throwing up. We were doing that to each other all week long. I really liked Lilbo hallucinating the Archons against the Ultralisk specifically. That was, like, it's weird to... I'm sure other people have done that. I watch a lot of StarCraft. I've seen it on a lower level, like a couple of Archons, but 6 or 7 flat-out blocking the Ultralisk against an inferior Protoss army when force fields won't do that for you.
Yep.
Was incredible, and for a youngster to do that on the fly against a top tier opponent, that was amazing to me.
A little reminiscent of the. By that point, I believe we had already seen the cinematic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I don't. What is your thought now that we can talk about it openly? Do you think that is the best cinematic hands down for Blizzard?
Ooh. I think my knee-jerk response is to say no, it's not the best ever. They've done some absolutely incredible ones. I liked even like Kerrigan versus Zeratul
Yeah.
from Heart of the Swarm. That was pretty cool. This is up there though. It's incredible. Like for one of the first times they did like slow motion built in there when the Zealot puts the shield in and charges through the Baneling. That's
I
so
guess
cool.
I'm thinking more of the cinematic previews, so like what they released before each expansion of a game, like World of Warcraft,
Oh, of the
Diablo.
three?
Of that, including WoW, Diablo, any Blizzard game, just the cinematic trailer.
You know what? I think it's gonna be hard to replace because of what it did at that time, but I think the Wings of Liberty one is still the best ever just because I remember watching online it being announced and I think it was Korea or China in an audience of tens of thousands of
Yep.
people blowing up and the internet like actually stuttered. Like it just shocked the world. And that was the video they used to announce StarCraft 2. So that's why I'm saying like this video, coolness wise, is 10 times better, but the emotional explosion that came with the hell, it's about time. That there's no replacing that. That was just incredible.
Yeah, I saw that reaction video, like the audience being shown that version of it, and then
Oh, I
them
watched it
sharing.
live. Yeah,
Yeah,
it blew up, man. It's insane.
yeah. So I guess because I didn't get to experience that, this was for me the best, and that's as someone that's jerked off every Blizzard World of Warcraft cinematic that's ever come
Oh,
out.
they do amazing. They always have.
Yeah, and they take a long time too, like 8 months for one of those to do. And I can't imagine what the rendering takes.
Makes
So,
sense.
so anyway, the long story short of all this is WCS was amazing. This weekend was just absolutely incredible. Uh, let's go back to what you were talking about earlier in discussing foreigners and WCS and region locking. A lot of
Hmm.
people have said this would be the best thing. A lot of people dissented and said we won't get amazing games. But I tell you what, you even take the Mana 4GG and the Hydra Lobo series out, we had fucking phenomenal StarCraft.
They got yeah. I mean, it's it's actually like a Wax Angel quote. I think it was something like tournament can be perfect production, but it ultimately comes down to how good your finals are, which is like kind of a glib way of saying exactly what you just said. Just all the games need to be pretty good for the show to be amazing. And to be honest, I think and this has kind of been proven over time, but like people are more interested in seeing top tier Koreans against a mixture of people, and that's non Koreans typically speaking. But then, kind of the addendum to that is they're more interested in seeing non Koreans do well against
Hmm.
Koreans. Like nobody truly enjoys a fucking slaughter, which is what we've had in so many tournaments. So the fact that it's not just Lil Bo, but a few of these guys standing up to these Koreans, and again, we have to absolutely acknowledge, especially on the show, now that I'm not on WCS stage, it's not like we're talking about hero life, Flash,
Right.
well, the absolute best Koreans right now. We're talking about some really, really good Koreans, especially Hydra. A lot less so your Violets, your Jaedongs, your Pol 4GG, or I just yeah, those guys. But it makes for a really fun, great tournament. Like those Koreans still won. They tripped up against non-Koreans and eventually lost to non-Koreans, but when it did happen, it was still a shock, especially Hydra, and the way that it happened was amazing.
Yeah.
So um, WCS, it's kind of interesting. This has always been StarCraft. It's like there's people out there, and they're not necessarily wrong, where they say WCS should be about the best players playing the best players. Well, if that's true, then it's 32 of 32 Koreans and no non-Koreans. Let's be honest with ourselves. Lobo's number 13 at BlizzCon right now. Would he be if we took the top 16 best players on planet Earth? Absolutely not. Would the top 32 be Korean? Would the top 40 be Korean? I don't know. That's where we can argue, but certainly the top 16. And is that tournament really fun? Yeah, it is. It's really fun for me. But I can watch GSL, SSL, and Pro League, and I'll see exactly all those faces all the time, every single day. So for a lot of people, they're like, doesn't matter. They're the best. They work the hardest. They should get that BlizzCon as well. Well, cool. 15 of the 16 slots are going to those guys. So to me, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
If not overly accomplished. In my opinion, I really like the best being rewarded, but a little bit of a nod being made to everyone else because this is not a fair scale.
Yeah.
StarCraft has never been played in a equal playing field. Koreans have pro gaming houses, they have TV, they have multiple leagues, they have the best training partners, the best ladder. Like you're going to produce the best players. They have history. So if we didn't have GSL, if we didn't have SSL, if we didn't have Pro League, absolutely, you need to reward those guys. They should be paid for their service. But they are being rewarded, and then the rest of the world that's behind them is still playing as hard as they can. And it's what I like about WCS is it's not like it's a gimme system where it's just like a given that 5 or 10 of the slots are non-Korean because of how much of a handicap they have.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually super hard for them. And if Lilbo is the only one that makes it, and then a couple of the ones that came close are like your Snoot, your Marine Lord, well, then that sounds like a fucking good system because I just named all the absolute best non-Koreans, and they're either in or they came close. That
Right.
sounds like a good system to me.
So you don't, you would not want a system where we have 16 slots for BlizzCon finals and 4 of them are allocated for the top foreigners and 12 for top Koreans.
I wouldn't, because I think I like the system that we have now. I think the addendum that I would make, and I think they're looking at this and probably talking about it, is that with GSL, SSL, and anyways, with several of the leagues being Korean exclusive, the points are weighted to those guys,
Right.
and there is a top-heavy number of players over there that are going to just get ungodly points without traveling anywhere, and that's okay. WCS is not a system that's supposed to be made to make you travel around the world. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a taste of all the regions. So for us non-Koreans that do travel, for the most part non-Koreans, excuse me, they have more access to it. But we don't have like specifically just the American WCS. We don't have just Germany, just Sweden WCS.
Right.
They tried stuff like that and it didn't work out. So I would like some of those points to be redistributed to the bigger tournaments where Koreans can travel to them, but non-Koreans also attend. So you're starting to see, again, your Smoots, your Smoots, your Snoot, your Marine. Anyway, some of those. I'm still jet lagged, I guess, but yeah, some of these guys getting a few more points so that it's a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that WCS, like it's season 3, it's the second to last tournament with WCS points, and we got lucky that 4GG and Marine Lord are still in it, and Lil Bo, and like that's cool, but it could have just been none of these guys can qualify for BlizzCon, so we're playing for money, and that's it, and that'd be pretty sad. That'd be bad.
Yeah, I like. So there's the fact that the points are weighted over in Korea, and I think that if next year they don't change that, then they should reserve 4 slots. But that maybe they do an analysis of this year, take away the points, and okay, if people had only competed in GSL and this is who we had, how many foreigners would have been close? How would more have actually qualified? And if they want to, kind of see where that is, and that's what I want to do actually after the last WCS points event, which is going to be DreamHack, right? Then I want to see where they would have stand. So we'll have an episode where we talk about that. Well, let's I think we talked about one real quick, the production, absolutely incredible. They talked about the production for season 2 and they said, hey, Toronto's going to be amazing, going to be hype. And while I thought the production was really good, the amount of hype that I got from a lot of people on the back end about it, I saw in Poland. Poland was just absolutely incredible. How did things run from your end?
They used a Polish ESL crew, which is new, and then they used a German TV filming crew on site, which was used at a few events, but not super esports experienced.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that as far as the online experience is concerned, outside of the stream crash that happened during the cinematic reveal, they did a really good job. It was a good show. The majority of the weightlifting for this event was done by the fact that venue was fucking incredible. Gorgeous. Amazing stage. Filled out the audience. Great lighting. Everything about it was really, really good. And then the Polish audience, this is science at this point for esports. In case there's someone out there that doesn't know this, which would be weird. Having a live audience that's enthusiastic and excited and having a good time is the best thing you can do for your show. There's so many shows that are okay, but then with their audience, they're transformed to great. And that was WCS Season 3. It was just an amazing audience, amazing venue, and good enough production, I think.
Yeah, from the viewer perspective, I thought the production was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't even bothered by the couple of dropouts that happened. So yeah. It was a very great show. Let's move on now. We've talked WCS. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything that just, has crossed your mind you've discussed on the back end?
Just that, I'm really energized. There's been a lot of esports, well, not esports, let's just be honest, StarCraft events where The viewership's middling. It's the same fucking thing. 2 casters throwing to a desk of 3. Um, you know, it's just like everyone. It feels like everyone's going through the motions. A bunch of Koreans stomping everybody else, and it's just not that fun. It would have been. It's just we've done that so many times, like 3 or 4 times a month for the last 5 years. Like it's just shake things up. And even though WCS like has had its terrible points, let's just be brutally honest. It's hitting a point in time where it's nice. Like it was, people have their mixed feelings about Tastosis because they're kind of diversifying their games. It was great having them there. It's just they're a part of StarCraft. It's fucking awesome. I thought Sean did the best job yet hosting the desk. His style was really good. We had a good mix of people. And then I think this is one of the best castings Nathanius has ever done. Behind the scenes, this is what these kind of shows are for. I'll tell you, someone was like, he was a little bit spurned actually because they're talking about casters for BlizzCon. They're like, man, we really need some hype casters. They're like, well, we've got such and such and such and such, but they didn't name Nathanius. Nathanius is like, I'm a hype caster, goddammit. And then he hears this at the beginning of the tournament. So for the rest of the tournament, he's casting his fucking heart out. Meanwhile, the esports Illuminati's like, yes, Nathanius, cast better than you've ever cast before. You're upset, are you? It was just a great show from him. And I was glad to have this. We had good viewership for StarCraft 2. There's going to be someone who's like, well, the other weekend, the other game had 700,000. Like, yeah, we're not the best viewership, guys. We're not. We're not the most watched game on planet Earth. But if we can get around 100,000 at our premier tournaments, that's sustainable. It's good. It's happy. It's awesome. And not enough can be said about the audience. And then the players we were lucky that the storylines went the way they did, that the games went the way they did, and it was just amazing. So I'm really energized and hopeful. I hope DreamHack Stockholm is a continuation. Obviously, it would be far too bold to say I want it to be just as good, but leading to BlizzCon and then hopefully at BlizzCon we have this ridiculous show. And from the stuff I've heard, I think people can be pretty excited and pretty happy. But also, I'm just going to put a wink out there. This is so me, but you heard it here first. There's going to be something announced about a BlizzCon that some people are going to be pretty upset about. I'll let you figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Super vague. Super vague.
The only
but
thing
a lot more to be happy about. Not to be a negative Nancy, but there was a career shift decision that was made that I think some people are going to be caught off guard by.
Oh, I don't know if I can concentrate on the rest of the show.
That's what I like to do. But now you got to tune in, don't you? You got to check out BlizzCon, don't you?
The only thing I could think that could piss people off is if they put me on the hosting desk.
That's right. Lycan's hosting. You're going to stage host. You replace Chobra. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Right. I wanted. So here's what I would really like to. You're talking about changing up these productions and stuff. I really think a pre-show and a post-show would be really good. For instance, when I watch GSL and they're like, all right, we love you, good night. Bam, they cut it. It's like, I want more. Like, tell me about it. Talk about what just happened. You give a little bit of analysis during. So it'd be really fucking swell if at DreamHack or if at IEM they had a pre-show where they sat there with, say it's you and me, Jeff. And we sat there and we had one of the casters and maybe one of the players. And we're going to talk about the games that we're going to see. And then at the end of the day, we do 30 minutes where we actually really dig in, right? We got one of the players that did really swell today. Like it was Snoot and he just fucking 3-0'd Flash. Yeah. And we want to say, hey, talk to us about that. We get some replays and go through that. That could really tie together a broadcast. So
I agree. I see. This to a larger extent is one of the things I've been kind of talking about for a while now. I want tournaments to shake things up. A pre-show, maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe everyone will tune in. Fine. I don't think a pre-show has to have tournament occupancy of like 50,000 people watching. If it's 10,000 people that just can't get enough StarCraft 2 content, want to check out some pre-game discussion, yeah, that's amazing. Post-game, a lot of tournaments are turned off by the idea of not ending on a super mega high note. Well, okay, but maybe that's not necessarily the way we need to end a StarCraft 2 tournament. A lot of NFL games don't end with everyone running around with their arms on fire. They end with the 3 guys just discussing what went right, what went wrong, breaking down some of the numbers. That's some pretty cool stuff. So I absolutely agree with you, and I hope someone's listening and it gets tried at least. Maybe not BlizzCon, maybe you don't bust it out BlizzCon, but any one of these tournaments, let's just have more content of different variety and let's see where it lands.
Yeah. maybe this weekend or next week at Gfinity, I'll kick some ass and they'll be like, you know what? Let's get that Lycan and Control guy to do a pre-show. Oh,
Sure.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right, let's move on now. Let's talk Legacy of the Void. How much Legacy have you played? I guess since the last change.
When was the last change?
Was it the macro? It wasn't. I believe after the macro mechanics, they made a little adjustment.
Well, I've been away for 8 days, so I haven't played any in that amount of time. But before that, I mean, all I play is Legacy of the Void.
Yeah. So, what are you? Have you read up on the suggested macro mechanic changes? What are your thoughts on that direction?
I'm not sure why, but throughout all of Legacy of the Void, I haven't had super mega strong feelings about things, just because I feel like the game's in so much flux that I'm just kind of ready to land wherever it does. But I will say, of that completely mediocre mindset and standpoint, I will tell you that I land more in favor of the typically red-cheeked and flushed, angered Reddit mob that is upset that they are reverting back. I do not like hearing in a lot of these updates, we're going to make it similar to Heart of the Swarm. I don't like that. I liked that they are being very bold Legacy of the Void. We started off with this, like, mega ridiculous saturation at bases where, like, you know, you mined out at fucking 5 minutes or whatever it was. Like, that was super intense. Then they dialed that back, and I feel like they dialed it back a little bit too far. Remove macro options. Shit. Well, the first day I was pissed. The Muslim was ready to quit. Like, people were really upset. Then we played it more, and we're like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. And then they changed that. And then the changes they made to it was actually pretty okay. Maybe a little bit too easy for Zerg, but everybody else okay. But then Nathanius actually told me a really good point. He was talking about how the mule is basically, you just don't interact with it, right? Like, it automatically drops, doesn't cost energy. Just, you know, that's pretty dumb. Like, just, that's like a weird graphic for getting more money in StarCraft 2. Not super hype on that. But I do not like the general concept of them talking about backing off and going to Heart of the Swarm. I like the changes, is the short answer there.
All right, so if you look at the community, I guess there was a Team Liquid poll, and the community seems to be divided. And so are the dev team. You know, that's what they said in the update. Dev team is divided, community is divided. Personally, I've had different opinions. When they first released them, I was kind of that, you know, uber objective, like, hold on, let's just see what happens, let's play it out. But at the same time, around that change, I felt that a lot of the game was going in a negative direction. And this is kind of where I actually needed you last week to tell me if I'm being too hyperbolic about it. But I feel like, this is the analogy I gave, is that Heart of the Swarm was like this custom Lego model, right? It had all these individual unique pieces and all that were just specially made, and Heart of the Swarm, where it's at now, it looks really good. And they took that and they kind of made a Legacy of the Void one. Some pieces were a little funky, but overall, you really like the newness of that toy, right? And then when the macro mechanic changes in, I feel like they took like all the red pieces on all the blue pieces and fitted them with the 4-year-old Legos, those big old giant block ones that kind of like, the gun wasn't actually a shaped gun. It was more just this red brick Lego, and it didn't feel right. Like, Am I overreacting to the way the game feels now, or do you feel that this is just a matter of some tweaks and everything will be fine and kind of fall into place?
Oh, I'm not. I don't know if I got the gist of what you're asking, but I don't think the sky's falling with StarCraft Legacy Void at all. I still think it's the best version of StarCraft yet.
Okay.
Macro changes in or not, reverted back to HOTS or going extreme, either one of those versions is the best. Well, less best, obviously, one way or the other, but I'm just... the units, them getting away from some of the things, the crutches, like that kind of stuff, it's really good. And I actually think Heart of the Swarm's in a good spot, so for me to say it's getting better, I think should be really exciting for people. There's some really funny, like, you know, they shouldn't get any attention at all, but there are some people like, why even bother buying Legacy of the Void? It's not, you know, it's like, actually, you're missing out. Like, they're doing incredible things, and I'm actually really excited for all the things. I think the fucking complete casual has a lot to look at, like Allied Commander and the single player, if they dare to jump into the shark pit, they have Archon mode to be their floaties. Like,
yep.
All kinds of really, really good stuff. And they haven't... no. There's actually things we can't... I'm going to do that thing. Sorry. Otherwise, I literally go, and they can't... and then I just like look at you and smile blankly. But yeah, I started to think of something that they haven't announced yet, and I actually can't talk about it. But it's just going to be good.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just I need to sit down and I need to grind out a few more games and kind of get my feet, you know, back into a good position, because that's where it really felt weird, is that I was kind of thrown out of whack, and now couldn't really feel like I was able to assess how I felt about the changes. I do know that I feel low on scans in the late game, and that I don't like the mule range limitation. Like, if they maybe tweak it and had some, AI that decides, oh, okay, this base is about to mining out. I'm going to go drop those mules on a different base that it has some sort of saturation of SCVs or whatever. Like, so you can't just mule hammer, but it can
Yeah,
do it intelligently. Something like that.
that was good talk. They mentioned talking about that.
Yeah, so that would be nice. And
Hmm.
I think that as we see balance, and we're going to go into that now, because as things get balanced, I feel that people who are kind of on edge with the recent changes are going to start to become accustomed, because the reality is no one likes change, right? Especially the gaming community. You get used to something, you don't want to see it change. We're going to see it change, we're going to see it tweaked, and now people are going to get used to it, right? It's like, oh, all right, well, I guess I can't drop mules anymore. That's how I felt. But then once they start to balance things, you'll get more comfortable with it. And now we're November 10th, set hard date. Now, granted, Blizzard has set a hard date before and they pushed things back. Will they do it this time? I don't think so. But how do you feel knowing it's September 16th, 2015, and November 10th? It's going to be here. Where do you see the future of patches and changes?
Well, there's going to be a bunch. They know that this has to be a big launch and it has to be a great game, and there's going to be a lot of fun stuff. Like, they've talked a lot about updating and making the UI the best it's ever been, so that just the user experience is really good. Um, Game balance wise and stuff like that. I don't know if there's going to be anything mega big. Like, I think they're pretty close, but they're moving at what a rapid rate they're doing. Like, David Kim just posted a September, what was it, 14th or something like that patch
Hmm.
update. The one before that was September 10th. Like, they're
Yep.
just, I mean, if they're going to go at anywhere near that pace, I'm not worried at all. I'm already not really worried that much. They also should shut down the beta. Like, we should remember that too. Like, if it is going to be November, then we should have this game until October, and then they should maybe not even October. Like, maybe early October, they should literally shut down the beta. You should not be playing StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void and then 2 days later buy the full copy. That would be the worst marketing thing they could do.
All right, so I wasn't around for Heart of the Swarm beta. I came in just after launch. So talk to me about the end stages of the Heart of the Swarm beta, just as far as what the relationship was between the community and the devs, and then tell me how what balance was like at the start of Heart of the Swarm.
I can't really remember that far back, to be honest with you, bud, but I can just tell you that they shut it down a month before, and then in that time, it's kind of funnier, and I think a lot of us went back to playing Wings of Liberty or whatever
Hmm.
it was, but I can't remember to be sure.
So I guess there wasn't like nothing that sticks out that says the game was actually kind of really fucking broken. Other
Oh,
than,
no, no, no.
okay.
I remember the Warhound or whatever it was. This is before your time, I think, but that was
Yeah.
a ridiculously broken unit. It was in there for a little while, and then they took it out, basically. But it wasn't take it out and then launch the game. It was take it out and then we played for another month or whatever it was.
Right. I saw so I guess we could assume then that whatever is in the game when they shut it down is what would be there when it comes out. Did anything?
It's extremely close to what it is. Yeah,
Okay.
they won't. They will. The game will be as close as you can imagine to its final form. Then they close the beta.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So there was no unit released, I guess, at the end of Heart of the Swarm, or in Heart of the Swarm, that wasn't actually in the beta.
No, no, no.
Okay.
Everything was play tested.
All right. Cool. Well, it looks like we're not getting the Herc back then. Most
Yeah.
unfortunate. All right. So we talked a little bit about macro mechanics. The release date, November 10th, and that's, I believe, right after BlizzCon. Let me pull up my calendar.
It's the Tuesday after BlizzCon, if I'm not mistaken. It ends on Sunday,
Yeah,
and the Tuesday it comes out.
that it does. That's
And I
pretty.
think Fallout 4 comes out on the 10th too, doesn't it?
It does. Not playing Fallout 4.
Well, I think, and this is the outside looking in. Blizzard fucking is weighing a gigantic, impossible number of balls. But from my completely detached perspective, sharing that date with a game as big as Fallout 4, is it going to cost them in sales? Obviously not. But does it mean they share the stage with another gigantic game, which means people's attention is divided? Their marketing is going to be split and fighting against that. I think it's a dumb date to come out with a game. I think the big selling factor is it's right after BlizzCon, so if you can imagine the fervor they're going to be able to whip up with BlizzCon for Legacy of the Void, it's pretty high. But then that's kind of funny too because they're running their big tournament at BlizzCon that's Heart of the Swarm. So how big can it pop? You know, it's like, guy, you know, get ready for BlizzCon, but also get ready for Legacy of the Void. You know, like it's going to be. I think it's a little bit tough.
Yeah, I mean, BlizzCon goes out on DirecTV. A lot of people watch from pay-per-view. A lot of people watch online. So aside from just the thousands of viewers that are actually there, the eye is on Blizzard. Blizzard is going to come out. They're going to probably do more announcements for Legacy of the Void. They're going to say, hey, these are other things that are coming out. To address a question that was posted in the Reddit thread, there are plenty of things that you haven't seen in the beta that are still coming. So, you know, hold on to your butts. It's not over. There's still a lot more coming about that awesome cinematic. Hopefully many people shit their pants like I did the first time I saw it. But there's still plenty to come, and I think that's exactly it, Jeff. They're gonna announce Legacy of the Void. They're gonna talk about it, and they'll be like, by the way, you can buy that shit next week, like 4 days. You can buy it.
It's great. I mean, it's fine. And like I said, they know better than I do, just from my complete layman outside perspective looking in, sharing the date with Fallout 4. But it's also Blizzard, and you preempted this. Like, if they don't feel comfortable, like they'll announce November 10th and be like, actually, nope, it's November 27th. And people will be like, oh, but you know, and they'll be like, that's fine. We're Blizzard. Like, we're not going to give you a half-ass game. We're going to give you the best game we can.
I don't think I ever played a WoW expansion that came out the day it was supposed to, except maybe Mists of Pandaria. Yeah, Burning Crusade was delayed until the spring, so it went from November to like spring for a launch date, and then I think they did the same with Wrath of the Lich King.
But their mantra is you know, they'll give you a general time of when a game's coming out, but their guiding light is they're going to give you the best game they think that they can make, and that's not ruled by time necessarily, right? Mm-hmm. Like, within reason, they still have a business to run, but for God's sakes, you are probably going to get their best game when they think it's ready.
Yep. Do you live next to a train station?
Yep.
Nice.
Not station, just tracks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. All right, let's see what else we got. For the most part, I think we've covered anything. Jeff, is there anything you want to talk about?
Well, I wish you would have asked me earlier. Off the top of my head, no.
All right. We've talked about Legacy of the Void. We've talked about WCS. I like where WCS went this season. It was a great event. Really awesome. Legacy of the Void, lots of changes are happening. We're seeing the game evolve. I think it's going to be good. I am still very confident in Blizzard. Let's backtrack real quick to the macro mechanics changes. What is it about? Because if you think about it, it's Inject, Chrono Boost, and Mule. Yeah. Mule, I think of all of them, is the least as far as, difficulty to the game or what, that opens up for other players. The least. Inject is definitely the worst. Chrono, somewhere in between. I guess, what is your biggest pet peeve? We've seen this bold Blizzard. We like the bold Blizzard. What is it you don't like about going back to those changes? Is it just a step away from the Legacy of the Void direction? Or do you actually think that removing those or changing those was a good idea?
I don't have a super strong feeling either way, because I think there's pros and cons to both sides, to be brutally honest. But I liked them being bold and changing the experience a lot. The no Chrono Boost and the no Mules was a little bit bold, because well, not bold, that's the wrong, I shouldn't use that redundantly. It was, I felt like it needed tweaking, because for Terran it just meant like, yeah, I'm scanning all the time. Like, I should scan all the time, and I should almost never, I should still build depots, but every depot I build should get a fucking supply call down on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And then for Zerg, I think that was the one that was very incorrect. Like, taking out that entirely made Zerg from the mechanically most difficult race to, I don't want to say the easiest, but up there. Like,
yeah.
Inject is an absolutely integral part of Zerg. It's huge, and it's what slows down creep spread. It's what slows down micro. But if you take the swarmiest race and make them completely battle focused because their macro runs itself, oh god, it didn't break the game. Like, it's not like Zerg just won everything 100%, but it was a lot harder.
Right. Well, it changes a huge aspect, because if you don't inject, if you're a good Terran and you can distract a Zerg and he has to pull a queen so he can't inject, or he just forgets to inject, that was like a cost benefit. You put on pressure, you screw up their macro cycle. I really, really like what they did though for the Zerg change. You know about the stacking injects, right? So for those who don't know, if you say you had a queen that has a bunch of energy, you could just spit, 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 and then after one inject pops, the next one just immediately starts. So the trade-off is that as a professional player, you're going to obviously inject on a normal cycle, right? Because you want to get those pumping out as fast. If your queen's, building energy, that means it's not injecting. What I want to see is if we'll start seeing people build more queens, or we'll see more heavy early queen openings, because then you can. The trade-off being you can focus more on doing other things if you have 2 queens on a hatchery, for instance, because you can get double injects versus going out around the map. So I really did like that change. Jeff, how do you feel about the chrono actually being on buildings and then moving from building to building?
I liked it. I like that it's a slight nerf in that you only have, 1 chrono boost per nexus, but I also like that it's a slight buff in that it's passive and it just, it's not as strong as the original chrono boost in terms of for that duration, but over time it is better. So I actually kind of liked it. I don't think anyone was complaining about it being too strong or broken, and I think we could all agree that it's easier because you're just passively like, well, I'm upgrading, so I'll just leave it here. You don't have to come back and do it over and over again. But there's still some parity. There's still some chance for decision making there and stuff like that. Like that's the balance I think they should swing with macro mechanics. They've just flat out said they want it to be easier because they don't want people to be bogged down by macro mechanics. And even though a lot of people really enjoy that, those people are probably the hardcore players, which is not the majority. So there needs to be some kind of balance where there's decision making. It's not completely done for you, but it's easier than where it's currently at. And I think with Chrono Boost, they hit it out of the park with that.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. And I think that the mule change needs a lot of work. One thing that people are citing when I talk about, let's just get the mule back, it wasn't that big a deal, it wasn't that hard for Terrans. One of the things people will talk about is the mule as a reason for, first of all, the unnatural SCV pull, which is a mechanic I never really bothered watching in pro games or anything like that, but there are pros who didn't like it. And then the mech issue, which is mule hammer, lower SCV count, higher army supply. I feel like this problem is already going to be solved in Legacy of the Void. First of all, bases mine out faster, right? So this turtling Terran, you have more opportunity to expand, build a bigger army, and take those inefficient trades against mech as a Zerg. But also, you're not going to be seeing mass Ravens, mass Vikings, or anything like that with Parasitic Bomb.
Not as much. You still will.
Yeah, and it's going to take that. Actually, side note, is something that I think still needs to be changed. You can't tell which unit is Parasitic Bomb. And that's
definitely
a little frustrating. But yeah, either way, I think that overall mech is going to be much more balanced in Legacy of the Void. What are your thoughts on that?
Mech?
Correct.
Yeah, well, specifically TVZ, Zerg's just going to have better options, like range 13 Ravagers, Parasitic Bomb, probably not Lurkers, but stronger Ultralists. Like, just across the board, they're going to have answers, whereas in Heart of the Swarm, we've definitely seen mech lose. It's not nearly as impossible as it was when it first came out, like anything in StarCraft is. When it first comes out, everyone thinks it's completely broken, then they start to have answers. But I think in Legacy of the Void, it'll be a lot more balanced. And just a quick comment on the mule thing you're talking about. I'm not a game designer by any means, but I would say something close to, like, literally just nerfing the effectiveness of the mule, making it all the same as the Heart of the Swarm mule, but just less good, means that the value is raised for scan and for supply call down, but you don't have the effect of, like, well, I just pull all my SCVs and drop mules, or, I take the space for 5 seconds, but I drop 4 orbitals worth of mules on it, and it's worth itself in 5 seconds. Like, that is just a flat nerf to Terran, and does Terran need a flat nerf? Probably not, so that's something to be discussed.
I think so, and that was, who was it? It was Suppy, and Iagaz were having a discussion, and I jumped in on it on Twitter. There's so much, like, if you think about the depth of StarCraft 2 and just how it's balanced and how things work together, you could say, you look at it and they're talked about, we'll just talk Terran for now. Actually, let's talk about all the races. Look at how each one handles worker harass, right? You're a Terran, you take a little bit of damage, but you have some mules to mitigate that. If you're a Zerg, you take a little bit of damage, but you clean up the army and you didn't lose a lot of your own. You can afford to, pop a few drones at once and really quickly get back that economy. As Protoss, you kind of have, you have instant warpins to more easily defend. You can photon overcharge to mitigate the amount of probes that are going to die, and if you do lose probes, you can kernel them out at a slightly faster rate than you normally could, produce them, right? I feel that, like, for instance, that's just kind of an example of how intricate that when you talk economy, it's not just, okay, Terran can, create a bunch of mules at once. It's how each race interacts with the other's economies. Is that,
right.
You getting where I'm going with that?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at the mule, like, Terran bio builds are built around the mule, constantly muling in the early game into the mid game. It's not really till the mid later game, unless you know DTs are on the map, that you start banking scans. So you got to think that that's going to be a big change. I'm not saying it's an unnecessary change or it's a terrible change, but it's something to be considered. Is that, and then you can't just say, okay, well, drop mineral costs on a bunch of things, because you know what? As soon as that happens, you're going to learn that, oh, some very smart pro is like, oh, well, now this costs less minerals. I can abuse that for a while. And that just kind of is that cycle of balance. And that's why RTS doesn't get those extreme changes that Dota and Counter-Strike get, because it takes a lot to balance an RTS. So much interacts.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's a lot to consider. So when people have an initial angry reaction, I do understand it. And when people get frustrated over the long term, there's a reason to. There is so much depth to this fucking game. It's
well, having emotions and being strong in opinion is one thing. And I agree with that, but not that we need to ever always address this, but just all the super strong, I quit forever, I hate these people, like naming David Kim and stuff like that. Like, it's like, all right, tone it down, because you sound like an idiot. No one's listening to you when you talk that way.
Poor David Kim. So one thing that was brought up last week while you were gone was that Hearthstone has actually done a developer interview on one of their talk shows, where the lead Hearthstone developer came on and he just had a back and forth like you are right and I are right now.
Yeah.
But when I've talked to StarCraft team, it's always been a pose pre-asked embedded questions and all that. I would like to get, and I mentioned this to Blizzard, I would like to get someone on, not necessarily David Kim, but just and again, it's not for an attack. We're not going to ambush them. Just someone to come on and say, hey, we'd like to discuss your thoughts behind this, so then you, Steven or Morrow or whoever we would have on, just gets the chance to say, hey, why'd you do this? And the developer will say, because of this. And then the person will say, well, I disagree. And then we kind of get that more instant and organic feedback than just, the blue post based off weeks of Reddit threads kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and that would be nice, but it's a higher risk than there is reward. None of these shows is frequented by 20,000 StarCraft 2 people every single week, and it's like, the beaten drum of what people think. It's just a good show has 2,000 people on it. We talk about stuff, but David Kim slips and says something stupid on that show with 2,000 people watching. 150,000 people get upset and whip up a fervor on all the forums and yell about it. He has a good conversation, talks about it, people nod their head and say, this is really awesome, that's great from Blizzard. And that goes on for about a week, and people just are like, good for Blizzard, but it doesn't strike gold with them. So I think they think, and probably rightfully so, the happy medium is being really up to date and candid on their patch updates. Like, those are fucking amazing. Yeah. They've come out and been like, this is a bad idea, this is a good idea, this is what we're thinking, this is bold. And they've answered feedback. Like, even on that hyperbolic Blizzard forum where people are like, I am so upset that they did this one thing with this balance thing, because me and my brother were talking about it, and we decided that this would be the better option. Like, a couple of times, David Kim has responded to those posts with like, hey, I'm sorry you feel that way, here's what we were thinking,
Yeah.
It's safer, it's smaller, it's not as cool, so I agree with you, but it is the smarter choice, I guess.
Agreed. I can agree. And I don't know what the Hearthstone community is like. I don't think there was any negative fallout from that interview, but yeah. I definitely understand fully why they haven't done it. Just voicing, I guess, in case they're watching that, would really like that to happen. Would be
maybe
cool.
They'll surprise us, yeah.
Maybe. All right, well, Jeff, that's all I have. If you're good, I think we'll call this thing to an end.
Yeah, Just a nice little 1 hour discussion of StarCraft. Not bad.
Yeah, I like it. I think this is so. If you guys noticed, we didn't do a question session, and I think I did go through all the questions, and I think we did answer them all. I'm trying to answer them. It took some feedback from some people in the community, and I'm trying to get them to be organically part of the discussions we have, so that we can incorporate that, help us drive discussion, and you get the answers you want and all that. So yeah, leave feedback. I guess I'm gonna post these videos real quick and make up for all the VODs that are gone. Hopefully the Twitch system is working now, and I don't have to worry about 3 versions of the same 3-hour show releasing. So anyway, Jeff, anything? Oh, is your Warlord Titan done?
It is, yeah. I can get it if you want.
I would like that if it's not a pain in the ass.
No, yeah. As long as I don't drop it on my face and cry, yeah. I'll be right back.
Yep. I will sit here and entertain our guests. I don't know what to say now that Jeff's gone. I'm all alone. I have this bottle of whiskey, and there's like 1 sip left, and I haven't been saving it for any reason. It's just a bottle, and it's a sip, and I haven't sipped it. That's just...
Well, here's what I'll do. I'm going to put it down, and I'll move the webcam. There's not really a good angle to put this at, but it's so fucking big and heavy.
That's what she said.
That's right.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So is it like metal or plastic?
It is resin, which is plastic.
That sounded heavy.
It is. It was 50 pounds, but now it's more.
Oh, snap. So it's like a human controlling that shit.
Yeah, they're called a princeps, and they actually plug into it in the fluff.
Is that was that magnetic? Like, did that just...
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That is pretty fun. I like the like the the I don't know what that is called, but when metal gets hot, like on a jet or something.
Yeah.
Like that look.
It's not quite warping, but it's yeah, that's what it looks like when something's fired a bunch.
Yeah, that
he
is
weathered it,
sick.
so you can see it's meant to look. These things, they're made and then they actually serve for like 20,000 years, 10,000, if not more. So it should never look in pristine order. So that's why he weathered the whole thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So what is... All right, real quick, aside, I guess, what is that like when you play it? Obviously the guy knows you have it. How does that thing come onto the battlefield?
We were it's actually kind of funny because it's made for bigger games. So for instance, when I play a tournament, the tournament limit is 1,850 points. It's my whole army. This model is 2,750 points. So he obviously doesn't fit in any tournament for the most part. So you play what's called apocalypse games, where it's just you're playing 10,000 points on either side, and this guy makes up a quarter of that, obviously. Jesus. Actually closer to 30% with upgrades. But he's... So this is going to sound super nerdy, but since we're doing a fast show, I'll take a little bit of time to explain this. He's armor 15, which is the highest in the game. He has what's called 6 void shields, and then he has a 5-up invul save for anything that gets through that. So for what that means is a void shield is like, picture, like in all this sci-fi, our shields are down, Captain,
Yep.
6 of those means that someone has to penetrate 6 separate AV-12 shields. So if I have a strength... So a Space Marine, little trooper, he has a strength 4 bolter. He cannot hurt it, because on a D6, the highest he can roll is a 10, and there's no modifiers to that to make it higher. So strength 4 plus D6 for potential of 6 is kind of the strength of what your gun can hurt, basically. This is very quick and dirty. But, so like, let's say I have a strength 8 gun. It would need a 4 to glance or to just barely hurt a shield, and that drops 1 shield down. So that's 50% on strength 8, which is quite high. Strength 9, strength 10. Nothing's higher than 10, by the way, in terms of strength. Easier to do. So after you get through those, you then need to hurt AV 15, which means I would need at least strength 9 to then roll a 6 to glance it. If I
Jesus
have strength 10, I can roll a
Christ.
6 to penetrate it, which has different effects, or glance it. And then it gets a 5-up invul save, so on a d6, on a 5 or 6, it just ignores that. Like, it just, yeah, nothing happened. Let's say you do all those things, it has 30 hull points. So you have to do that 30 times, or do 30 special results that end up killing 30 hull points. So for most of my friends that have these giant armies, they don't have anything that can reliably hurt it, actually. So we're like, yeah, let's get an APOC game going. And we're like, okay, you bring, how many knights do you have? They're like, well, I got 5. And I'm like, all right. Their highest strength is strength 10, and it's one shot, and it's a large blast, but who cares? You hit it one time. And then I get 6 shields, a 5-up invul save, if you roll a 5 on that to hurt its armor, and then you do 1 hull point to it. Meanwhile, he's shooting a gun that's this big, and anything it touches takes a D shot, which is the strongest shot in the game. It's either D3 wounds or hull points, or if I roll a 6, it's D6 plus 6, you get no save of any kind. So you're just obliterated. So that's as nerdy as we get, guys. But the idea is, he's like a fucking god. It would take something else as big as him, or close to it, to really even hurt him reliably.
I guess are there a couple other things that are like in his class of I guess I don't know what you call it, class of
He's a Titan.
mutant.
That's what they're called.
So there are other Titans?
There's a Reaver Titan, which is roughly about half him in almost every way. Half hull points, half damage output, half cost. And there's a Warhound, which is half that. And then those are the Imperial Titans. And then Tyranids have a bunch. But my Tyranid Titans couldn't even hurt him, like, for the most part. They shoot strength 10, so I would need a 5. And then he gets all kinds of saves. There are things that hurt him, and it's just, you need either D, which is, like I just said, the strongest shot in the game, or there's a couple weird things, like Goss would hurt him. In close combat, guys are swinging better weapons. They can do more damage to him. But what's kind of funny is when he blows up, so, like, for instance, by the way, this is just next to my computer. This is called a Night Titan, and outside, this is in tournaments. Like, this is something that's actually in my tournament list. They're pretty big, as you can see, although it's like 1/5 as tall as him. Big robot, same kind of concept. There's a pilot in there, all that kind of stuff. When he blows up, it's a 12-inch explosion that comes out around him and kills things around it, and it's very strong. It's a D-blast in the center. Cool. 12 inches. When this guy explodes, you measure 36 inches out from him, and then in a full circle is the explosion, and it's a D-explosion. It's the strongest type of pain in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the table you play on is 6 feet by 4 feet, so 36-inch circle is half the table.
So, all right, last question about the Warlord Titan. It sounds like you can't play him in a tournament, like a regular regulation tournament. Is this kind of just like a more of a toy than everything else, more just like a I have this, it's cool kind of thing?
It's all the above. So it's like, I didn't buy it to make my army better by any means.
Mm-hmm.
He's outside of normal tournaments, but I'm gonna do a video on him showing all the detail. But he's an actual art piece. Like the detail, the craftsmanship that went into him is incredible. I actually am just a sucker for the model itself. I think it looks incredible, so I just like cool things. Like, big robots are only second to big monsters as far as I'm concerned. But then what this does allow me to do is, like, APOC games are really fun. They're super stupid nerdy, insanely nerdy. Like, what it is 4 guys on each team, if they decide, putting together like 5 tables in a garage, buying 600 beers and a million pretzels, and then, like, for a day they're in there fucking just pretending to blow shit up with big robots and monsters. Like, I have no shame saying this, especially to this community, that sounds like an amazing amount of time and fun for me. So, like, the fact that I would be the guy, like, walking in with the Warlord, and they're like, oh my god, like last night we had a barbecue for my 30th birthday, and the guy that finished this brought it in last night, and we set it on the table, and half my friends there are Warhammer friends, and they're nerds like me, and you, and I, and everyone, so they all came over, they were taking selfies with it, they were taking pictures of it. Like, it is the model in Warhammer.
Alright, I lied. Last question. How do you transport this shit? Like, when you have a bunch of pieces, or you just have that thing, like, do you have Pelican cases that these fit into? What do you...
Yeah, you can. Like, people go ham on that kind of stuff and have those things. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'll never fly with it. It's just, there's no way. And then, like, for there's a lot of big tournaments in California, actually. So for that, the way it was delivered to me was it was in the passenger seat, buckled in at with my friend's his Volkswagen Bug. It looked ridiculous. So that's how it'll get transported. It's magnetized mostly, like the guns and arms are magnetized, but I would never risk it. Yeah. Never, ever in a million years. Like, if I got on a plane and they're like, sorry, sir, you're going to have to check that, I just, like... I mean, I wouldn't get on the plane is what would happen. There's no funny scenario.
Buy a plane seat for it. Buy a plane seat for it, strap it in next to you.
But even that, you know, like... Yeah. I'm a nerd, but I'm not going to buy a fucking $600 seat for a model, you know? So...
All right, Jeff. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time, carrying that in there, and showing it to us. Anything coming up for you in the near future?
Yeah, you know, I think everyone's busy in esports, so they haven't announced it, but I do have another gig. I'm going to be working on a StarCraft 2 tournament coming up. There's two. You're at one of them, and they already announced the talent for that. And then the other one
they didn't announce Gfinity's or the other one's talent?
No.
Oh,
DreamHack?
damn! I thought they did. All right. Well, cool.
So I'll be doing that. I'm heading out tomorrow to go play some Warhammer. So I'll tweet. I'm going to try to get these guys to stream it. Last time I was there, they didn't stream it. So if you're interested in checking out Warhammer, guys, make sure and check out my Twitter. I'll be talking about it. And then, other than those events, I just picked up. It's right here. I'm excited to dive into this. Metal Gear Solid 5. I did get it for the PS4 because I'm going to just sit in my boxers with, Barris next to me and play the game and not stress about streaming it. But other than that, no, not much, man. Like, October's actually been kind of chill. I hope my Seahawks start winning more other than the one game they played. So that's that. That's it for me.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for coming on. And as always, guys, the VODs are going to be up for this episode, the last couple episodes that we've missed. Even if Twitch screws up, I will do what I can to get them up there. You can check me out next week. Twitch has been, you export the VOD, and instead of exporting what you cut up, like your highlight, it exports the entire clip. And it's not every time. It happens every other time or every 3 times.
Just to keep you on your toes.
Right? So I'd get messages. I'll see comments coming up, filling my email saying, you screwed up the VODs again, Lycan. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to take a break from this. So it might be fixed by now. That was a couple weeks ago. No show next week. I fly out Tuesday to England. I want to be hosting Counter-Strike Go and StarCraft analysis desks. So
good luck, man.
Thank you. We'll see how I do. And you guys can tune into that Gfinity. They always put on a hell of a production. I'm really excited to work with Paul. And yeah, so that's it coming from here. Hit that follow button if you want to see more. We'll be back not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. So we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
So dirty.